All right, here we go. The marble split tutorial part 1. We're going to start by properly prepping and sanding our cup. And then we're going to clean it off with some acetone and a paper towel, and then wash it off with some dish soap and water. Once your cup's totally dry, you can just go ahead and spray paint it completely white. And we just use a flat Rust-Oleum primer spray for that. Next step is you're going to want to trace the bottom of your cup with a piece of scratch paper. So we're just going to trace around the bottom of the cup, and then we're going to cut that out and then fold it in half and use it as a template so I can find the exact center line of my cup. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but I just like to do it this way. And then of course, you could save your little template for the next time you do the same size cup. Make sure you erase any unwanted pencil lines like around the sides, and then you're just going to take a pencil and mark those center lines like you see here, and these little lines that we're making will be the guide to where we place our tape along the bottom of the cup. So you can see that there. And we're just going to grab a large piece of painter's tape that will span the whole top and bottom of the cup. And then I like to run it against my clothes so it's not too sticky. That way we're not pulling up any paint. You guys, make sure your paint is like totally dry before you start this step. So we're just going to place one side of the tape along that center line. So we're leaving one whole half of the cup exposed, and that is the side of the cup that we will paint the darker side for the glitter portion of our cup. Just kind of eyeball the sides, make sure it's even, and you're going to want to press that down firmly. You don't want any of the colored paint leaking into the white. And then after you put the tape down for the sides, you'll put a strip of tape down the remainder of what's exposed there on the back side. If you wanted to use like saran wrap or cling wrap, to cover up that extra space, you could do that as well, to save you on some painter's tape, because that stuff's kind of expensive. So once we've got this all covered, it's ready to paint. We're going to paint it completely rose gold. And here we are. So now we're going to measure where we're going to place our diagonal line with the tape. So I measure up on a 20-ounce skinny about 3.5 inches up on one side and about 1.25 inches up on the other. And then you'll just grab your tape, section off for the diagonal line so that the bottom portion is covered and the top portion is exposed, so we can lay the epoxy down for our glitter. And look at that. We're using 143 from Peachy Olive Glitters mixed with Rose Gold Opal. It's a 50-50 mix that I made. I will, of course, have all the glitters and paints that we're using linked in the description box of this video. So we're going to apply the glitter using epoxy method. Just a really thin coat that we're applying here. I mean, not even half a milliliter of epoxy, just a very thin coat. Make sure you get all along those tape edges really well. And then we're going to sprinkle on our glitter. Make sure you get your glitter on there nice and even. Before you apply your glitter, you want to make sure that you get out all the lines in your epoxy. So you may want to let it sit for a couple minutes. Make sure that that epoxy is completely smooth before you put your glitter on. We're just going to tap off the excess with some scissors. And look at that sparkle. You're going to want to let this dry for about 2 to 3 hours. All right, so what we did after we let the glitter dry is I removed the tape after about 4 probably 3 or 4 hours, okay? And if you can see, I'm going to stop my turner right here. I replace the tape, and when I replace the tape, I put it like just a hairline past where our glitter line ends. So what we're going to be doing is when we seal the glitter, we want the sealer that we're going to use to keep this glitter really in place. We want it to form a seal around where this section of glitter is. So we're going to do that with Counterculture's Quick Coat. This is just a urethane sealer, so if you wanted to use polyacrylic, you can use that as well, and I will have both of these products linked in the description box. And so when I'm doing this just for this little section on a 20-ounce skinny, I'm probably only going to pour about, how much is this? I think this is like 10 milliliters of the sealer. And this is just going to really keep all that glitter in place. And it dries really quick too. So I'm just kind of patting it on. I don't really want to brush it with my fingers because I don't want to disturb my glitter too much, but I also don't want this to be too thick. And notice that my turner is not moving right now. I don't want it to move yet. So I'm just starting in the middle top and kind of patting my way out. And I want to avoid any kind of dripping to the side because this stuff, when it dries, it does not come off, and I do not want it anywhere other than where I'm putting it. All right, so and before we started this, I made sure to tap this glitter off really well, so it's not a bunch of extra glitter isn't floating around all willy-nilly. You could even spray like a clear gloss spray before you do this step, just to really make sure that you don't have any glitter floating around anywhere. Kind of double check to make sure that you got all your spots covered. All right, and that's it for the step. So we're gonna let this roll while it dries for, I would say, like about an hour, no more than an hour, and then we'll go ahead and remove the tape and move on to the next step. All right, you guys, so we've had the cup drying with the polyacrylic or the quick coat over it for a while. I just let it sit overnight. I was done working on it last night. So anyway, what you're gonna want to do before we put the water slide on for the marble slide is we're gonna like very carefully lift our tape. Now, we're gonna leave this part spray paint, which I'm gonna make this nicer later on. I'll show you how I do that because there's like a bunch of like tape marks and stuff on it right now. But if you wanted to glitter this portion a different glitter than what you have here, whatever, maybe you want to do a different color here, what you would do at this step after the quick coat is dry over this section of glitter, you would leave your tape on and then just tape off this section and then glitter this part. You can glitter it with like Mod Podge, or you could even do epoxy method if you wanted to. Just really light coat of epoxy. Put on that color glitter that you want for this bottom section and leave your tape on for a couple hours, and then very carefully lift your tape. And then you'd have that other glitter color down here. Once this other glitter color dries, you would tape off again and then do the polyacrylic over this section as well, so that both sides are completely sealed in. the reason why we're not just spray sealing this section and we're doing the polyacrylic is that we can tape over this glitter and not disturb it. So anyway, here we are with our rose gold glittered section, and we're gonna carefully remove our tape to reveal this nice clean white side. And before we lay our water slide, we want to really inspect this white side to make sure that there isn't any maybe stray glitter that got on there or any kind of like weirdnesses. So we have a nice clean white section. All right, so we're gonna get the water slide applied to this white side. So I'm going to first tape off this other side here, and I'm just using the same tape that I just ripped off. I just saved it and I'm using it for this side now. Painter's tape is expensive, so I try to reuse it whenever I can. So if you took your tape off of this white side and you noticed that this side had some like weirdnesses in the paint, or it was some of the paint got pulled up when you pulled this blue tape off, at this stage you would just completely tape off the rose gold side and then respray really quick just to make sure it was nice and clean for your water slide. I've got my water slide sealed and printed, and I've got my water here that is at room temp, okay? And I will have the type of water slide paper that I use along with the recommended spray sealer in the description of this video. You don't want to pull on the sides too much to check if it's ready, because you could damage your water slide that way. Or just kind of like, you can just kind of tell, I think. I'll just pull up a little bit on the side. Okay, and then make sure this whole sheet is right. Is my paper to wet the cup. We're gonna start by pulling this over and first attaching it to our blue tape. So that one side, we're gonna start by attaching it to the blue tape. You want to make sure that you don't do like an exact size. You want overhang, especially for these marble patterns. You want overhang on all four sides. When I originally printed this, I didn't print it large enough because I was going to use it on a different size cup than what I'm using now. So mine might be a little bit short. So what we're doing is we're just wiping it very lightly. Notice I'm keeping the backing in the water, okay? We're just positioning and wiping with our coffee filter. Okay. Take your time with this, guys. Okay, if you find that your water slide is acting a little funky, get your coffee filter a little wet and just re-wet the top of that there. I've got all this left over here. What I'm gonna do is try to get it so you can see. Knife along the tape edge here. Really sharp knife here, okay guys? Sharp, sharp blade. I'm gonna pull this excess off. Bubbles, I'm using a damp coffee filter, okay? So see these edges here? I'm just rolling them around. Maybe get a dry coffee filter. Just roll that around. As this stuff starts to dry, it's gonna get a little stickier and a little easier to form to the cup, okay? Let me get this side too. You don't have to trim this now if you don't want to. If you feel more comfortable with letting it dry first, you can do that. Sometimes I do that. All right, you guys, so here's what we've got so far. I went ahead and took the tape off from the rose gold side. And we've got our water slide here. It's nice and smooth. I don't have any bumpies. And then I actually just left the bottom white because I didn't put any water slide on the bottom here, and I didn't wrap it either because this particular pattern is already pretty white. You know, it's not like this is gonna be a harsh transition between here and here. So I'm going to leave this white, and then I am going to show you how I finish this inner situation here. If you wanted to wrap your water slide all the way around this lip and then trim it here, you could. Or once you have enough epoxy built up to where this is a completely smooth surface, you can wrap your water slide all the way around this lip and then apply like additional water slide in the same print on the bottom. If you want this to be a totally continuous print all the way through. However, that's a lot of work. I have done it before, but I don't care to. So what I'll do is I'll just pull this pattern around this lip as much as I can. And then I am going to show you later in the video how we would cover this part up without having to glitter the bottom. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this sit for about 2 to 3 hours, and then we will start our first epoxy coat over this thing. Don't worry about this paint situation yet, okay? If you're following along and you're gonna leave this painted, we're gonna epoxy over it first, and then I will show you how to touch this paint up later, okay? So let this sit, and then I'll be back in about 2 to 3 hours to show you guys how we put on that first layer of epoxy. Thanks. All right, so stick around for part 2, which will be coming out next, where we'll be epoxying over the whole thing, also showing you how to apply the vinyl stripes and finishing. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.